Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we will be doing a tiny bit different, something a tiny bit different than a bunch of other things. We're reading a fan fiction about Team Fortress 2. As you might know, I like Team Fortress 2. Team Fortress 2 is a really good thing. Let's read this thing. Well, that was a mistake. Blue Spy thought muzzily as he tried to pull himself up onto his knees. His ears still rang from the blast as dust settled down around him. A sharp pain in his side made Spy hiss and glance down. Oh dear. Huge splinter of wood. Of course it was wood. That's what they got for fighting robots while surrounded by barns. A huge splinter of wood sticking out of his ribs. He touched the skin under it with shaking, nerveless hands. His blue gloves came away with stained purple. Oh dear. Spy slowly pulled himself free from the wreckage, pushing aside planks and bricks from roof tiles. He was lucky in a way. It could have been so much worse, or maybe a nastier injury. It would have been better. At least he would have died quicker that way. He dragged himself further back into the building, where a corner of it still stood. As he moved, he began to cough. It got worse and worse until he was forced to stop and curl up on his front, coughing into floorboards. Spy tasted copper and glanced down. The floor was speckled in blood and spit. That was probably worthy of another oh dear, but by now he felt resigned. Spy made it to the wall. His intentions had been to lean against it until he could pull himself together enough to find help. Instead, he found himself sliding down with a groan. He curled up on his side on the floor, staring dully at the shard of wood sticking out of his side. It had been a mistake. It had been his own fault. He'd seen the robot carrying the bomb and rushed to find his teammates, but found only Reds instead. They were supposed to be working together, but years of murder and hatred and all-consuming grudges could not be forgotten so easily. He'd presumed Reds would try to shoot him on sight. He hadn't stopped to warn them. And now, how much of the site was even left? How many had survived the blast? Spy suspected he'd accidentally ended up on the closet closest when the bomb went off, but he had no idea how widespread or localized the blast had been. Maybe he was the only one injured. Or maybe everyone, red or blue, was dead. Maybe Respawn had been hit. This time he could finally be dying for real, all alone at the back of an old dusty barn. What a way to go. At the sight of a blue spy running at top speed, the red team had immediately gone on alert. Sniper hadn't been as removed from the immediate battlefield as he would have liked, only up in a hayloft, easily able to see the metal soldiers hunting them down. He'd given a shout when he saw the bomb, but it seems like he'd been too late. The barn he was in had half collapsed in the explosion, and getting down from the trestles. Still, he managed, with only few minor scratches and scrapes, grateful that he was wearing his glove. It made it easier to hold on to splintering wood beams as he worked his way to the ground. When he got to the side of the blast, he couldn't see anyone at first. Nobody from Red was there. He can only hope that meant they had respawned or moved on before there was another attack. Something red caught his eye and he turned, but it was only a spray of blood. It was easy enough to follow the tracks, pointy shoes, and steady drip of blood. That'd be a spy then. Probably the dang blue who hadn't bothered to shoot anything or warn anyone. Not that Sniper could judge him too harshly. Their truth was an uneasy one. He rounded the corner and the sound of a man coughing interrupted his tracking. Following the hoarse, painful sound into another wooden structure, Sniper found himself standing in front of a rather pathetic-looking spy. The man was curled up on his side. The floor around him was spattered with blood. For a moment, all he could do was look, unsure how he should act. They weren't teammates. They'd kill each other enough times and certainly taken their rivalry to more personal levels than most of the others had. Sniper still had a scar on his cheek from Blue Spy, but he couldn't feel vengeful with this tiny little old man bleeding through the suit onto rotten wood and old hay. Footsteps heading his way. Someone had come to save him. Then the all too familiar outline of a lanky man in wide-brimmed hat came into sight. Spy held his breath, frozen still, curled up on the floor, bleeding, dying, vulnerable, utterly at the Red's mercy. He tried to pull himself upright, teeth barred into a snarl. He was an injured cat chased into a dead end, showing its fangs one last time as the huge dog that it concerned. And he had about as much a chance as fighting back. Spy tipped his head back, jutting his chin out defiantly. He couldn't stop the flicker of fear in his eyes, though. What was Sniper going to do? Spy could pray for a quick, merciful death, but he doubted he would get one. The Sniper would draw it out, impossibly neat cut after cut with this huge knife of his. So heavy, so unwieldy, so expertly handled, the Sniper would probably chop off his fingers one by one, enjoying every scream. Or maybe he'd skin him alive, turn his hide into leather. Spy wouldn't put anything past the man. Even while he was standing there, looking torn and uncertain. That hadn't been the response Sniper had expected. Spy was always so carefully groomed, so snarky and sharp-tongued, watching him scrabble on the ground like an animal in a trap. His even teeth bared. Well, it would have been threatening if he hadn't looked a little ridiculous. Sniper knelt, unsheathing his kukri, starting to cut the man's suit jacket and shirt away from the large splinter of wood skewering him. Wouldn't do to have it tangle and get it the way when he pulled it out. If he could, it looked nasty, and it hurt like hell to come out. Once he had a tear going in the fabric, he pulled it apart with a loud ripping sound. There was nothing he could do. Nothing. And now the Sniper was right next to him, that huge knife unsheathed, and Spy needed to cough. He desperately needed to cough. He could feel the blood pooling from it in his lungs. He needed to cough, but he forced himself to stay perfectly still. The Sniper wasn't cutting him yet, but all it would take was one slip, one sideways moment, one cough. What was the Sniper even doing? Something to do with the ragged piece of wood sticking out of him? What was he going to do? Grab hold of it and tear it out? Shove it deeper? Play with it? Easing it this way and that until Spy cried? Then he heard a ripping noise. Oh God, oh God. The Sniper was tearing his clothes off. No. Oh, no. Oh, no. He thought the Sniper capable of many terrible things, but not this. Ignoring the looming cookery, Spy grabbed hold of Sniper's wrists. Get off me, get off. He broke off as he began to cough, turning his head away so the Sniper couldn't see, not to hide the fact that he was coughing up flecks of blood. That must be obvious for dignity's sake. Sniper saw the sheer panic in the other man's face and suddenly realized what Spy was thinking. He let Spy hold his wrist, not struggling against him. It's all right, mate. I just want to help. He lowered his... What even was realized that he lowered his voice, nervous of more robots hearing him. I'm not gonna hurt you. He pulled a bandana out of his pocket, offering it to Spy to wipe his mouth. If he was bleeding from the mouth, well, hopefully he just scratched up his throat and his lungs were all right. Sniper wasn't sure if he can do anything to help Spy if he were that injured. Spy gripped Sniper's wrist as hard as he could. That the Sniper wasn't going to hurt him. Wanted to help. He didn't believe it for a second. Spy had been fighting the Red Sniper for years. They were worse enemies. Neither would have helped the other. Spy certainly wouldn't help the Sniper if he found him like this. Would he? Spy eyed Sniper warily as he pulled a bandana out of his pocket. Spy hesitated when it was offered to him. What was this about? Where was the trap? Spy coughed again, his breathing raspy and unsteady. More blood on his chin. Wonderful. He let go of the Sniper's wrist and took the bandana off of him. As he raised it to his face, his fingers scraped across Stuttle. S-word. How much damage had his mask taken? In his peripheral vision, Spy could see a tuft of dark, blood-spiked hair sticking out of what was likely a tear just above of the eyebrow, and it appeared that the material, the holes for his eyes and the mouth, was nearly torn away on the left side. Even with the pain in its side and the black spot that bloomed in front of his eyes every time he coughed, it was the enemy Sniper seeing his face that really bothered Spy. Horrible injuries and death happened to him every day. Having so much of his face and torso exposed to a red did not. Spy's grip on his wrist became painful, and Sniper winced a little. Finally, Spy released him as he began coughing up more blood, dabbing his face. He seemed so surprised to find his mask partially missing. It had barely registered to Sniper. He'd seen little bits of Spy's hair through a torn mask before. He knew it was very dark, nearly black. You know if there's a medkit nearby? Sniper wasn't terribly familiar with this area. He was used to being up away from the main fight. As he gently turned Spy so that he can see where the splinter came out the back out. If Sniper was going to pull that out, they would need a medkit immediately, or Spy would bleed to death. If he could even get it all out at once. Spy seemed unfocused. The bandana held limply in his hand, blood dribbling from his mouth and nose. A thread of fear coursed through Sniper. He had to act quick. Respawn was getting less and less likely every time they died. One explosion would mean permanent death instead of waking up again, healed and energized. Spy may be in pain in the A. But they needed all the allies they can get right now. Medkit? He repeated, louder, taking Spy gently by the shoulders. Medkit? Medkit? Medkit! Now Spy raised his head, the world tilting this way, and that's sickeningly. His head was heavy, so heavy. Medkit, medkit, medkit. I need a medkit. That wasn't actually in the story, but you know. Medic had shown them where he'd stored them before the battle, hadn't he? He hadn't been paying proper attention because Scout had been mouthing off about something. He'd been arguing about when he should have been listening. Well, if he didn't know, time to use logic. Where would they likely be? Spy tried to think. It was like his thoughts were water escaping through a sieve. He couldn't hold on to them, couldn't pull them together. Medikit. cabinet?" Spy rasped, remembering now where he'd glimpsed one early in the battle. "In the workshop next to this, to the right." The side that hadn't taken as much damage in the explosion, he hoped. Sniper considered letting Spy just slump against the dirty barn floor, but instead bent down and scooped him up as carefully as he could. He held the man under his knees and back, putting one of the Spy's arms over his shoulders. It was bound to be a little bit painful, but the barn was hardly hiding anything. Heading out of the half-destroyed barn with a careful look back and forth for robots or teammates, Sniper left quickly. He saw nothing and no one. He left a bloody handprint on the workshop door as he pushed his way in. This building had taken a little scorching, but it was in far better shape than the barn. Spy was not expecting to be picked up today by anybody, let alone the enemy Sniper. Frankly, it was embarrassing. Spy was going to argue against the whole thing, but then he found himself too busy trying not to faint to say anything. He wasn't entirely sure he was successful, because the next thing Spy knew, he was on his side on the top of a counter in a different room entirely, the workshop. He reached out a gloved hand and tapped his fingers against the side of a huge rusty metal vise attached to the end of the counter. Spy wasn't sure why he'd do that. It just seemed like a good idea to check that the world was still real. Everything seemed so too hazy and distant. Even the sounds of fighting going on outside. What were they fighting for again? Spy couldn't remember. Putting a Spy down on the counter gingerly, suddenly realizing there was a large blood stain on the abdomen where Spy had rested him. Sniper rifled through the cabinets until he found a med kit. Huffing out a sigh of relief, "I'm going to get this out, and we're going to take care of you, all right?" Sniper grabbed the splinter from both sides and pushed it through carefully back the way it had come. Luckily, Spy's body hadn't really had time to seal it in, and he bled freely. The pain was excruciating. A thin, cracked cry escaped him. Okay, no. Spy's hand flew to Sniper's wrist again, holding on to him as though it was the only thing keeping him from falling down a deep ravine. His eyebrows pinched as he heard the wet, gristly sucking sound of the splinter being pulled from his body. Spy stared at the Sniper without really seeing him, his eyes huge and round and filled with pain. Then he felt the splinter scrape past bone. He let out an embarrassing whine, a high, raspy little noise that he wasn't even aware of making. His eyes rolled back. His body slumped onto the bloody, dusty corner. And everything was dark. Gritting his teeth, Sniper finally pulled the splinter free and dropped it into the workshop floor. He was happy not to touch the bloody thing anymore. Spy had made a few pained squeaks and grabbed at him until the splinter was finally out. He seemed to be out cold now, his grip weak. Sniper popped open the medkit, taking out the usual salves and syringes and doing his best to patch up his enemy turned ally. Okay. There's a lot more to read. Anyways, I would be surprised if you got it to this point in the video. If you did, good for you. Jackson worked a lot like the Medigun fumes did, knitting people back together like torn cloth. It was always sickening to watch and Sniper turned his eyes to Spy's face as the side grew whole and unscarred muscle and the skin regrew. He was still covered in blood and his mask was torn. But then was color spot in Spy's cheeks now, and the tension he'd been holding in his muscles seemed to melt off him. Sniper took a slow breath. He was no good at this. Taking care of other people, he was self-sufficient. He often didn't even go to medic when he needed to, preferring to take care of himself. He hadn't even realized it until the sound was gone. The spy's breathing had gone from a bloody rasp to clear, even breaths. Whatever damage had been done to Spy's lungs had been cleared up. Unfortunately, the damage Sniper had done to his shirt and jacket was still there. Tucking off his red shirt, Sniper pulled Spy's arms through the sleeves carefully before laying him back down. Sniper still had his undershirt on, but that was enough. Still, without the red of his shirt, he felt oddly naked. Oh gosh. I don't know where this is gonna go. This is actually my first time reading this. I didn't practice this or anything. Anyways. Spy returns to the world and stops and starts. The first time just after the injection, the pain of the wound and rapidly repairing muscles, organs, and skin sent him back under again. Second time consciousness struck, he became aware of sounds first. A soft rustle nearby, a distant explosion. Then feeling returned his lungs. He could breathe again. The pain was gone. It was a wonderful but beyond relief to be free of it. Spy took a deep breath in as he opened his eyes, which set off another coughing fit. No dragging, stabbing pain this time, though. Just a few final flecks of blood caught in the back of his throat. Spy can see something red. Of all the blues, he was the one who would be the less disturbed to find himself in red. He needed it for his disguise, after all. The odd bit, though, was how his shirt didn't fit. It smelled wrong, too, like sweat and gunpowder and leather. His disguises were never like that. He looked up and found Red's Sniper watching him. Oh, well, that explained it. He was wearing Red Sniper's shirt. Somehow, that made it very difficult to look him in the eye. Spy's gaze fell on the long, bloody splinter of wood discarded on the ground. How about we never do that again? Okay, sorry. How about we never do that again? He asked. It was supposed to come out cold and aloof. Instead, Spy just sounded a lot lost and disoriented, even to himself. How about we never do that again? Oh gosh, no, I'm not. How about I never do that again? Sniper cracked a crooked, toothy grin and nodded. Sounds good to me, he agreed. He'd been in the middle of debating with himself whether or not he ought to remove Spy's mask. Not only was he curious about what lay underneath, but the thing was torn and stuck to Spy's skin with blood. It looked uncomfortable as hell. As all hell. Where was I? Oh, there I was. He hoped he didn't look as guilty as he felt for even considering it. Spy must wear it for a reason. Sniper could understand hiding, even if they never liked each other, even if he hated that dang scar on his cheek. They were just mercenaries. Spy took things too far, but he had been hired to be a pain in EA, same as Sniper. Though the pain was gone and he can breathe freely, Spy felt uncomfortably sticky, or at least too much was currently sticking to him with thick, tacky blood to be comfortable. As he peeled the tattered remains of his shirt and jacket free of his side, but didn't know what to do next. If he let go, they'd be stuck to him again. In order to get off, he had to take Sniper's shirt off. But at some point in time, it would leave him topless in front of the Sniper. For most of his life, this would have been nothing significant. It was just that he'd been fighting this war for so long now. The identity of Spy had overridden the man beneath. Spies hide themselves. That's what they do. No one had seen more than what little of his face and the mask allowed him to see, and the occasional glimpses of his wrists. Everything else was hidden away, come rain or shine. But it was ridiculous. Of course he would have been shirtless in front of someone. Of course he could. Of course he could. He had nothing to hide. It was just that maybe he smoked a little too often, and maybe that suppressed his appetite a little too much, and maybe he skipped meals just once too often. And maybe he was painfully aware that without the suit, he wouldn't be that sleek spy dressed in neatly cut blue. He'd just be a man, a skinny, underweight Frenchman. Nothing mysterious or intimidating about him at all. Nope, it was good. The shirt needed to come off. Time to sit up properly and calmly take it off, as though he was the most confident man in the world. He tried. The minute Spy got halfway up, the world began to swim in front of his eyes again. He crumpled back down with an angry little noise. Ah, yes, the bloodlust. He had forgotten about that one. If the sniper had used a medikit injection, which he must have done, else Spy wouldn't be here right now. That would have healed his wounds and boosted his production of blood cells. It was just that those injections weren't as strong as a proper medigun beam, so they couldn't do the second bit nearly as well. This was awful and pathetic. He was fine now in theory, but too weak to even take his shirt off in front of the enemy sniper. Today was not a spy's day. Just sit, the sniper told him, heading to the workshop's sawdust-covered industrial sink and turning the taps to see if they worked. Blessedly clean water came out, and Sniper set about finding something for them to drink out of. He finally found a couple cracked mugs and filled them both after giving them a good rinse. The water was warm, but it was better than nothing. While he was at it, he wet his bandana too. Spy was different like this. It was hard to see him as the same pain in the enemy that he usually was. He was so thin, so human. Usually it looks as though nothing bothered him, but now he was a mess. Sorry if you can hear my breathing. It's just what I have wrong with my microphone. Once I get a new microphone, you won't hear my breathing as much. Listen how I say as much. Where was I? He set the mugs on the counter so Spy could choose his own, offering him the bandana to wipe the blood off of his face on the inside. His own undershirt was stuck to his chest with Spy's blood, but there was no way he was washing his bloody shirt and wearing something cold and wet in the middle of the battlefield, even if they did seem safe for the moment. Spy levered himself into a sitting position. He managed to move slowly enough that it didn't set off the dizziness again, but he still felt sick and thirsty. His body was horribly dehydrated after losing all that blood. He watched the sniper like a hawk as the Red seemed to read his mind and turn a tap on experimentally. Spy intended to make a fuss about the state of the mugs, but the sniper cleaned them out thoroughly as though, once again, he'd read Spy's mind. "Thank you," Spy said as Sniper handed him the bandana. It was a simple, common phrase. 2 words, 2 syllables. Name it, Jeff? Sorry. That was just something I do sometimes. But Spy struggled with it all the same. It was his pride, not the words themselves, that was the issue here. He was used to working alone. He was used to fighting with the sniper, used to killing him, mocking him. The sudden change had put the metaphorical rug out out from under Spy's feet, and now he had no idea where to stand. He picked up one of the mugs and drained it before turning away to carefully pat at his face with the bandana. He winced as the damp fabric brushed over the little abrasions in the skin from the blast. The injections has gone into healing his major wounds, not the scratches that remained. God, he was a mess. No worries, Sniper. No worries. Cavalry's here. Sniper waited until the Spy had chosen his own mug. Then down the water in the remaining mug. He tugged his hat down over his eyes and gave Spy a little space, ignoring the Frenchman, letting him take his time fixing himself up. He looked like hell. Spy poked at his balaclava, feeling the damage. It felt very tight across his nose and cheeks as the small amount of material left strained to stay in place. A couple of strands gave way at his touch. Spy very much suspected that the rest were going to snap soon. He should get away from the Sniper before that happened. Except he knew he wouldn't be able to. He was too tired, too weak. Want to cut the rest off? Sniper out. No, I'd be really good at. How about after this, I sing Overwatch FanFiction, because I'm a lot better at mimicking Tracer than Sniper. Anyways, Sniper offered, unable to resist after he saw some of the mask rip under Spy's hands. Cut it off? Cut the mask off? What the hell was Sniper thinking? How dare he? Then a rebellious little part of Spy, one that was still lightheaded from the blood loss and reeling at all that had happened, asked, "Why not? Why not? What did it matter? What did any of it matter? Was he scared of someone seeing his face? Yes. Yes, he was." Spy was not scared of anyone seeing him without some of his clothes on, let alone his mask, but he was going to take the shirt off in any moment anyway, so why not? Why not? The hairs on the back of his neck prickled at the idea. His breathing hitched. What did it matter? The world had been turned upside down already. They were fighting robots, for Christ's sake, and the red Sniper had helped him. The blue Oh! Yeah, I said I wouldn't do that, but I just did that now. Anyways. It was the end of the world. The end of his world. The end of Spy. He felt dizzy again, but a strange, half-mad grin spread across his face. Why not? Yes. Then he laughed, a tight, pained sound that was barely a laugh at all. Why not cut it all off? Oh gosh. He doesn't hide the shape of your face or anything, Sniper agreed, pulling out his kukri. Moved carefully, giving Spy space and time to move away. Bit by bit. He cut off the mask, revealing the man's thin and blood-stained face. Spy was pale, with a bit of a tan where the mask didn't cover his skin. He was stubby and unshaven, his hair a bit wild from being under a mask. There, that'll feel better, he said softly. Spy had expected Sniper to give him the knife, not for the Sniper to start cutting the mask away himself. Spy sobered up immediately, the giddy, heady feeling from him before disappearing as he sat perfectly still. The Sniper didn't crowd him and gave him the chance to move away, but Spy didn't. Better to let the Sniper remove his mask than to make a fuss and end up getting cut. He intended taking his mask off to be something important. Spy tried to work out what as a clean slice free of the top of his neck. He'd intended to do it himself as some kind of defiant act, a show of strength, proof that he didn't care about exposing his face to the enemy. But instead, the Sniper had taken the Spy's autonomy away from him, and he was cutting the mask for him. Slice by slice, the enemy Sniper was exposing him. Except that clearly wasn't the Sniper's intent. Every moment was so careful, so precise, delicate. Spy didn't know how to react. He'd always used offense as the first line of defense. He'd hunt people, wind them up, mock them, act prickly and sarcastic, and he never have a nice word to say to anyone. But it really all was just a defense mechanism. And in the face of such sincere care from a man who should hate him, Spy felt as though his real mask wasn't the only one on that sniper had cut away. When it was done, Spy ran a nervous hand through his hair, leaving a mess of tousled waves in his wake. No, this wasn't the proud, defiant moment he had intended. He couldn't even look at the sniper. "Thank you," he said again, his voice small. A flicker of anger licked at his insides. Not at the sniper, but at himself. This was pathetic. He forced himself to raise his head. Forced himself to look at the sniper's wave. Yeah, the sniper nodded to him, watching Spy for a moment. He never expected to see him like this. Vulnerable, thin, human. Okay, guys, that was the first part of it. It might seem pretty long, but that was actually 2 chapters, what I just did. And there's 4 chapters. So, if you want me to read the next 2 chapters, then go ahead and comment down below, like the video, subscribe if you want more. If you want more, let's get this video to, let's see here, 3 likes. 3 likes. If I get this video to 3 likes, I'll do another one. I'll probably do another one anyways, but who cares? If I get this video to 3 likes, I'll definitely do another one. If I don't, I'll do it, but I just won't do it immediately. You know what I mean? Anyways, that's it for today. I'll see you guys in the next video. Booyah!